Psalm 18. Last time I went on and on about the idea that it takes humility to call out to God for his help. And David did just that. Now, in beginning in verse 7, he's using some very symbolic language to well, let's see what he's describing. Verse 7, then the earth quaked and trembled. I've never had that happen when I've prayed. I'm pretty sure that this is a statement of hyperbole. It's a symbolic, metaphorical statement from David. And it is entirely possible that there was an earthquake in response to his prayer. The foundations of the mountains shook. So this is no small thing. They quaked because of his anger. Now there you get what I think is at the heart of this metaphor. What was God angry about? I think God was angry about how David's adversaries were treating him. This is kind of an important idea. Now, some of my adversaries were really not adversaries of mine. I mean, not to the, I've actually never had an adversary that was as bent on my harm and destruction as Saul was toward David when David wrote this. Pardon me. The truth is, my adversaries are, it's all about ideas and words. I can't even think of a time when I had an adversary even threaten me physically. But all right, so what I'm trying to say is David had actual adversary in Saul. And from David's heart and perspective, Saul's behavior toward David made God angry. Angry enough to shake the foundations of the mountain. Verse 8, smoke poured from his nostrils. Fierce flames leapt from his mouth. Literally? No, figuratively. So this is not God being a little annoyed. This is God being really angry. Burning coals blazed forth from him. Okay. Now, verse 9, he goes on. He opened the heavens and came down. I don't know. I'm unable to determine where the symbolism ends and the literal begins. I don't think this is literal. I think it's symbolic. Just the way everything from verse 7 on has been. Dark storm clouds were beneath his feet. All right, dark storm clouds call to mind power. I mean, and not, well, especially if you live someplace like Israel in David's day. If you saw a dark storm cloud coming, what would you have done? Well, you'd sought shelter, I think. Okay. Verse 10, mounted on a mighty angelic being, he flew. Hmm. Literally? No. Soaring on the wings of the wind. It's kind of like, uh, I think special effects could have a field day with this symbolic phrasing. Um, a good cartoonist would have, is that what they call them today? Or are they called, maybe they're called illustrators. But I guess what I'm saying is these are vivid word pictures going on. Verse 11, he shrouded himself in darkness, veiling his approach with dark rain clouds. In other words, he was kind of, is it, I mean, this seems sacrilegious for me to say, but I think he may have been sneaking up. Well, verse 12, thick clouds shielded the brightness around him and rained down hail and burning coals. That's, I mean, this is not, the man upstairs. No, this is somebody you don't want to mess with. Verse 13, the Lord thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded amid the hail and the burning coals. So that didn't stop. 14, he shot his arrows and scattered his enemies. Great bolts of lightning flashed, and they were confused. Now, there is this, for a whole lot of people, their view of God is he's kind of like, I don't know, any picture you might have of a Greek god, probably, no minor god, but I mean, this long beard, very muscular, and he's got a lightning bolt in his fist, ready to throw it down. Okay, now, that's not a very good picture of God, or is it? That's exactly the picture David draws. He's throwing down lightning bolts, great lightning bolts, and his enemies are scattered and confused. Well, yeah, I think so. Verse 15, then at your command, O Lord, at the blast of your breath, the bottom of the sea could be seen, and the foundations of the earth were laid bare. That's like, what's the point? The point is, we're dealing with a being, an entity, who is more powerful than can be articulated well. It boggles the imagination, and we think of ourselves as quite a bit more advanced than people in David's day, and in a lot of ways we are. But one of the things that David understood, and I think generally Israel, again with some exceptions, but so here's the understanding: you don't want to mess with the God of the universe. He'll breathe out, and it parts the ocean. So you see the bottom of the ocean. I'm not talking about at the beach. I'm talking about in the ocean. Verse 16, he reached down from heaven and rescued me. That's the point David is making. And it wasn't like God was sweating bullets because he didn't know if this was going to work out right. No. He reached down from heaven and rescued me. He drew me out of deep waters. I I don't have much interest in deep water swimming. Let me rephrase that. I have no interest in deep water swimming. I can swim. I at my age, I'm not sure it's probably a very good idea for me to take on a very big swimming challenge. But my good friend Don, he loves to scuba dive and looks forward to his scuba diving trips the way would look forward to a golf trip. But for the ancient Hebrew, the deep waters of the ocean, and for them, this would have been the Mediterranean Sea. The deep waters represented mystery and danger. He drew me out of deep waters. I was in deep waters, he says. Emotionally, physically, not literally, but the the threats and the pursuit of King Saul had put David in these metaphorical deep waters. Verse 17, he rescued me from my powerful enemies, from those who hated me and were too strong for me. I, again, I don't believe, well, you may have, but I have never been, I've never had this literally happen to me. I have had circumstances and seasons of time, thankfully mostly short seasons of time, where I felt I was in so far over my head and nothing I could do was going to change the situation or make it better. I've had times where it was all too strong for me. I wasn't going to be able to do it, and I knew it. I'm grateful, oh, so grateful. Those times were never like David's times. Well, he goes on, he says in verse 18, they attacked me at a moment when I was in distress. In other words, they were looking for time of weakness, defenselessness to attack, and they did. But the Lord supported me. That's an interesting concept, that the Lord supports me. The Lord supports you. What does that mean? I think he supports us in a whole lot of ways, but we often miss it because we're in a hurry to get from point A to point B, from one thing to the next, or we're so locked up with anxiety about what's happening that our pretty much only interest is to survive this, somehow get out of it. I don't think that's wrong or evil. I think that's an instinct that God's planted in us. But when we get out of it, as David now reflects on his experience, that's something we need to do. We need to reflect on and notice the times that God supported us. So my challenge, and I've said this in a lot of different ways already, but I'll say it again and re-challenge. You have to pause and reflect. You may want to get your calendar out and go through it to notice the times when God supported you, because that's the only explanation for how you got through what was happening. So, okay, pick it up here next time on Self Care with Stevie Boy.